Hello and welcome to your drawing the hair demonstration. So I am going to just show you how to add guidelines for the hair and how to do a little bit of value mapping. And then at the end, I'll actually draw a little bit of a curly hair person because curly hair is the hardest to draw. I think it's the most fun to shade, but it is the hardest to draw. So taking a look at some of the images. Actually, let me draw a little bit and then we'll take a look at some other images. Okay, so for his hair, the only thing I'm really going to do is add, because he has a little bit of a longer front piece, so I'm going to add a few marks like the direction that it's curving, the way it's growing out of the scalp, and then I'm going to do some value mapping of that piece of hair that's kind of flipped up. And you don't want to do a ton because obviously most of the hair is just shading. All right, so I'm looking at where this piece kind of flips up, and I had started it here, and it comes up into box A, and then it's like kind of just jaggedy all the way up to box. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. No, okay. I'll just draw a little bit darker. Okay, so then I'm going to give myself this guideline of where the hair's lighter and darker. So you're going to value map where the highlights are in the hair. So I'm looking, and it doesn't have to be perfect because hair is a lot of layering, but you want to get like the major chunks, like recognizing major pieces. Okay, so there's that highlight part. Okay, over here, he does have like a swoop of hair, and then that kind of meshes in with what's there over here. And then over here, it's like, I'm just gonna do a couple lines. It's like brushed kind of forward right there. So I gave myself a couple guidelines there. Okay, so now, especially if you have short hair or the top of it's longer and the sides are shorter, we want the change of direction. So here, starts growing this way. Here it's pretty much growing straight down, so I'm looking at length and direction kind of guidelines. And then what's the difference up here? So I feel like this is still going this way, but then this part goes that way. So I have the change of direction where two lengths of hair meet. Okay, so then let's look at a couple different hairstyles. So for this kind of hair where you can see definite chunks, I would kind of outline these sections, and I would outline where it's darker. And I would give myself a general kind of guideline of where it's lighter. And then here's where you would definitely do a couple lines going up and then a couple lines going down. And I would give myself a general outline for where the highlights are. If you have super messy hair, then I would, for this hair, because it's mostly dark, I would probably outline the lighter parts, and I would give myself some guidelines where the highlights are. And then if you have like in here, where you have a definite shape of a dark value, a shadow, I would outline that a little bit. You can kind of shade in a little bit just to show like, hey, this is where it's darker, especially if it's like between lighter valued hairs. For, let's say like this kind of hair. Well, I would definitely give myself some swooping guidelines for the direction and how it changes. And then I would also outline where the dark parts are. So do some value mapping. For, are we getting more complex? Let me see. Okay, those were the last of my short haired ones. For straight hair, I would give myself a couple, because her, even though it's straight, it changes direction slightly. Like this piece kind of goes this way, this piece comes straight. I would definitely outline these chunks of darker value, and I would give myself an outline of where the highlights are. So I'd outline like this highlight, I would outline the edge of it there, and then how this piece kind of comes over. So give yourself a couple guidelines for length and direction, but also outlining where the highlights are. I forgot to ask if anybody had braids. I'll probably ask again. I might have to do a second video of braids real fast while class is happening. But if you do have braids, you would do like a general kind of outline of it, and you would have to draw the detail in. They're not that hard to shade, but it is a lot of drawing. So let's say you have wavier hair. So for this hair, I would definitely give myself directional guidelines of how it swoops. And I probably, for like this section, I give myself like probably 1, 2, 3, probably 4 lines to show that. And then I would go back and outline my darker parts. So in here, outline. So for the highlight at the top of the hair, I would give myself a general outline here, and I give myself a couple outlines for the flow of the hair. So if it's kind of wavy / curly. If you have, there's 2 different versions, more textured hair, I didn't draw this one, but I am going to draw a little bit on the other one. You're going to look for chunks of hair that are on top. So for instance, like this piece. So I give myself like a general kind of outline there, like this section on top. These I'd probably actually take a little more time to draw out for the contour outline that would have already happened. But here I would do like that section of lighter hair, and then I'd outline where it's darker. So I definitely outline where it's darker here, darker in there, and it's mostly layering. If you have a little more looser curl but still textured, same thing. I'm going to show you how to draw some curly hair, but you would have to kind of like follow along the chunks that are on top. And then this hair is actually not too hard to shade. It's more drawing than it is shading. Okay, so for this version, so looking at chunks that are on top, so I'm going to look at this piece, and it starts in C, it goes into B. So I'm going to kind of give myself a little bit of the contour edge. And then it kind of just comes down into 3. Okay, so I'm looking at this chunk that's on top, and it comes from 3. Oh, it pretty much hits along here, and then kind of fades up a little. And I'm going to do the bottom chunk of that because it meets with this piece here. So I'm pretty much just looking where her highlights are, like in here, like this piece right here, how it fades in, which I'm trying to find it with my contour outline, which is here. Fades in that way. All right, so in here, there's not really any chunks to draw. I would just like recognize that when I go to shade it. But over here, I definitely do have a piece. So that starts in F4, F4. So I'm looking for layers that are kind of on top, and then it kind of fades out in here. So I'm just going to kind of give myself a little bit of a chunk. So you're looking for chunks that are on top. So that's true if you don't have as textured hair, but it's still wavy or curly. So that's the last one I'm going to show. So let's say you have curly kind of hair, or less curly, or more curly. So I'm going to start on this side actually, and I'm going to follow pretty closely for a contour outline. And I have that piece there. You can delete some of the contour outline, but in general it's the contour outline that makes it look like curly hair. Okay, so then I'm going to chunk it out. So I have a piece that starts like here, and I'm just going to follow it along, and it kind of meshes in with this piece. Okay, so then, okay, up here, definitely going to give myself a couple contour outlines. Okay, so here where it just looks kind of messy, I'm just going to follow a couple of them like all the way down, and you're just going to chunk it out. And I would actually take your time and doing this. So this piece kind of fades in. Oh, actually, this comes over a little bit. And curly hair is all in the shading, so it will look weird. So this kind of just fades up into the dark. It'll look weird until you actually shade it. And I really do try to look at the ends. Okay, so over here I have pieces in between. So I have like a piece here, a piece there. So you can throw some pieces in between, but I'm just looking for the chunks that are on top. Okay, so like over here, I'm gonna start next to her face. Okay, so I have a piece that comes over, and then she has a piece that kind of flows up and then becomes a chunk of hair over here. So I really look at how does it look like it's growing out of the forehead, like get the hairline. So it goes that way, this goes that way, this is flowing over that way. Okay, so now I'm ready for a few more chunks. So I'm gonna follow this piece. Okay, so I followed that piece along. Okay, now kind of in between I have a lighter piece. There's a piece that kind of comes down there that I didn't see before. Right in here it kind of becomes, turns into this piece. It kind of sinks in, and then there's another piece over here that is bending over, kind of goes into the dark, and I'm looking for what do I see in between. So there is like a chunk there, and it looks like another piece there. So I'd be more concerned with the top layers, and then the in-between we'll just kind of like erase out and add a little bit. So the key is to kind of take a piece and follow it all the way down, and then take another chunk and follow it all the way down. And you're gonna do just the top layers. And so really kind of take some time and use your observation skills. And if you're like, I don't know, just turn it into like a chunk. This one has like a strand that's there. And it looks like there's a piece curving out here. And it flows down there. I look at in between. There's like a strand there. And a strand there. So do the chunk on top and then the major chunks and then fill in between. So I would do like this piece, I did this piece, and I filled in between. Then I'd probably come back and do this piece, I would do that piece, this piece, and then I look at where's my contour outline that I've drawn and how do I connect those pieces in. So there's curly hair for you. Definitely do it with the grid on. I just didn't want to draw a whole nother person just for the curly hair. But do it with the grid on for sure, because then you can use the viewfinder, you can kind of follow along. Okay, good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.